I had quite the year last year. 2024. It felt like it had great highs, accompanied with the horrific lows that felt like crossing a bridge over the pits of hell. Nonetheless, as a consumer of media, I want to talk about everything I've done this year. I know I'm very late to this subject, but just bear with me, I had a rough few months. Like last time, I'll be going over each month's games and films that I've played and watched, respectively. I posted a media thread on Twitter, but moved it to Blue Sky due to the other platform being a complete dumpster fire now. One more thing I should note is that unlike last year, where I only listed shows and games that I've finished, I'll be listing seasons of shows that came out that I watched and liked, so we get to see more TV shows this time around, as opposed to only listing shows that have actually concluded in their entirety. Also, I decided to add some cameo friends in here for the sake of variety, so let's get into it. January felt like a cold recovery from 2023. It was still only around a month or two after the passing of a close loved one in my family, so it was a bit of an emotional start to the year, but I mainly took this January to calm down before the storm. So what did I play and watch? Metroid Prime Remastered is a shadow-dropped remaster of the first 3D Metroid game that came out in 2023, but I didn't finish it until recently due to other things taking over my time. I was also very frustrated at the time that no physical copies were being sold anywhere because they sold out instantly, so getting this game was actually pretty tough. It took a while for me to actually finish, since it really is a spruced up version of the first game. The definitive version, though. This game really is a spectacle on the Switch. It is an extremely impressive remaster for the system that really holds up next to other AAA shooters. Really impressive remaster, I liked it a lot. I played an iconic Rareware game in 2023, and thus I played an iconic Rareware game in 2024. Conker's Bad Fur Day is a game I've always known about, but never actually tried. This is definitely one of those games that you need to go into blind in order to get the most enjoyment out of it. It is a wondrous sight to behold on your first playthrough, but it really kinda loses its appeal on any future playthrough, unless you got amnesia and forgot everything that happens in the game. It is an absolutely hilarious spectacle, but it has some tedious fetch quest gameplay and some horrendous shooter controls in the latter half of the game. I love Conker for what it is, but it's one of those games that I don't really love playing. Famous Sonic the Hedgehog Netflix show Sonic Prime ended, and it was one heck of an okay show. I really did quite enjoy Season 1 due to its impressive animation and great action scenes, and Season 2 had an incredible first episode with Shadow and Sonic fighting and eventually teaming up with one of the best representations of Shadow the Hedgehog as a character I've seen in a while, almost like foreshadowing. But otherwise, the rest of Season 2 kind of felt like more of the same stuff that was in Season 1, which was a little tiring. Season 3, though, I think I'm okay with saying that Season 3 flat out sucked. Again, Season 3 started with a good first episode where Sonic and Shadow team up to face the new threat that I won't spoil if you haven't seen the series, but then after the first episode they separate and the next 6 episodes are this exhaustingly long war with twists that don't hit hard at all. It goes, oh, now the good guys are winning, then oh no, now the bad guy has something up his sleeve. It's so repetitive and it was a slog to sit through. The ending has somewhat of a decent payoff, but Season 3 literally murdered the entire show for me. I was honestly calling it the best Sonic show when it came out due to its stellar animation and decent character writing in its own context, but honestly, it could have just ended after Season 2 and I would have liked the show way more. I hope you liked my Conker talk earlier, because Conker Live and Reloaded is a remake of Conker with overhauled controls and online multiplayer that is now defunct. I initially wanted to make a video on both Conker games, but I ended up not really having that much to say about either game. Reloaded is both better and worse than the original in my eyes. The controls and visuals are far better than the original game, making shooting controls actually fun this time, quite the concept. But this remake also censors a lot of stuff from the original, and changes some designs in a bit of unnecessary ways that kinda affects the charm of the original game. So it kinda balances out. I'd say play both and decide which one you like more. They both have their pros and cons that you may agree or disagree with. Now here's a spicy one. This movie ended up coming way later in the year due to various reasons, but I'm putting it here so that way I remember that it's on the thread since I watched it through. I'll just say that someone leaked the entire movie on Twitter before any trailers came out. It's the exact same movie as what came out later in the year because legitimately nothing changed about it from the leaked version to the actual version. Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, This movie was so horrific that it makes the worst episodes of SpongeBob look like band geeks. This movie was just so uncomfortably annoying to watch. The scene of SpongeBob sniffing a horse turd and enjoying it made me want to curl into a ball. I'm not joking about that, by the way. I did not like a single character in this movie, and the live action effects look like something I'd make for a mid-tier college project. Probably the absolute worst thing I saw this entire year. Then I decided it was a sane thing to do to watch Hazbin Hotel, and I accidentally listed it twice on my media thread because I didn't know the whole season was airing that month. Oops. Now, Hazbin Hotel was something I kinda waited on for a while since I watched the creator's other show, Hell of a Boss, at the time and really enjoyed it. But then Season 2 of Hell of a Boss kinda started to lose the magic of what made the first season so much fun to watch. Now Hazbin Hotel is out, and it feels like it treats every viewer like it already knows every single thing about it, so it can skip to the big, explosive bits of dramatic music and tension. There are some absolutely beautiful moments in this show, but it is cluttered by lackluster comedy, underdeveloped characters, and simply obnoxious sex references that just annoy me. As weird of a comparison as this may sound, I kind of feel the same about it as I do with the Illumination Mario movie. It has wonderful animation and music, but a very lackluster character and story, and I don't think I'll stay for Season 2, honestly. Anywho, one relevant topic to another, does anybody remember Palworld? This specimen dropped in early access and was the hottest for 2 weeks before being forgotten soon after. I was gifted this game because I was trying it on Xbox Game Pass, but the game looked absolutely dreadful on Xbox Series S, so someone just gave me a Steam copy of the game. Thank you very much for that, by the way. I am not a Pokemon fan in the slightest. In fact, I have a bit of a distaste for the series that I don't really want to go much further into. It's along the lines of, it's not my things, and something the new games look really bad. Palworld is this weird slop of concepts thrown into a single game. It's Pokemon, it's Breath of the Wild, it's Rust, and it's a shooter for some reason. The dev's previous game, Craftopia, was already suspiciously similar to Breath of the Wild, but this kinda does the exact same thing but for Pokemon. As hot of a take as this may sound, I honestly think it does a lot of things much better than modern Pokemon does, but it also simultaneously feels like it doesn't have much of an identity of its own. When I think Palworld, I think Pokemon with guns, and it doesn't go much further past that. I mean, there was this whole spiel when the game first released that people thought the PAL designs were made using AI, and the devs got extremely offended by that. But I don't know, if you want a Pokemon Legends type game on PC with guns, then I guess you could do worse. It is February, and I am once again fully enrolled into a college semester, and I'm beginning to work on numerous different projects. I'll get to those as they come, but during the start of the year, I said heck it and decided to indulge in some mascot horror. Poppy Playtime was a game I was always curious about, but never played due to the massive controversy regarding the studio. I probably shouldn't have bought the games with said controversy still running rampant, but I usually like playing games that I'm interested in completely blindly. So I bit the bullet and forked over my money. Oops. We'll go chapter by chapter with this. Chapter 1 was a chapter that they initially charged $5 for, but I'm glad they eventually made it free because it really does feel like just an intro chapter to the game. It has a lot of suspense and cool puzzles, but it only has one really good chase sequence at the end. And you know what? Since it's free now, it's honestly a stellar introduction to a horror game. The creature, Huggy Wuggy, makes an incredibly creepy impression, and the chase sequence with him at the end is super well done, with him crawling around the vents and cutting corners to end up being directly in your face, so you're able to view his horrifically well done animations without having to turn the camera around. It's a great first chapter, honestly. I can see why it got as popular as it did. Chapter 2, I'd say, is better as a game, but I don't think it has anything as scary as the Huggy Wuggy chase sequence. But it has a lot more gameplay in it that feels meaningful and has lots of stakes, along with some pretty cool puzzles, so it balances out to being a good and creepy chapter of the game, with the last chase with Mommy Mom Legs, wow. Mommy Long Legs being a pretty cool chase sequence. Now, Chapter 3, I have very conflicting feelings on. It's the most ambitious chapter by a long shot, and definitely the scariest with its much darker theme. But for some unnecessary reason, they changed the game engine in between chapters, and all 3 games run in different softwares. Chapter 3 has way more significant graphical and animation differences than Chapter 1 and 2, and it makes things feel very inconsistent. Not to mention, Chapter 3 is incredibly buggy. It's playable to the end, but there are times where the game is pretty unoptimized, and some of the AI glitches out and does some weird shenanigans. The final boss of the chapter is also completely terrible. It has way too many factors going on with it, and it is nowhere near as easy to understand as any of the chase sequences, which still had their bits of challenge. I don't know, for everything Chapter 3 does right, it does 2 other things wrong, and I just hope there aren't that many more chapters of this game. I know Chapter 4 isn't the last chapter, but man, I am just not a fan of episodic releases, and it's things like Chapter 3 that solidifies my reason why I don't really like these kinds of release practices. I might play Chapter 4 this year, but I don't know how inclined I am to give this company my money. Now then, switching over to Nintendo, Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance was a game I tried out a very long time ago but never properly beat until the day the remake dropped. My kid brain didn't really know how to solve some of the puzzles in World 5, so I decided to conquer the game at long last with my big adult brain. It's a solid puzzle platformer with cool movement options that make it a very fun game to speedrun. I hear the original Game Boy Donkey Kong is better, but this one's no slouch either. Same goes for the remake of the game on the Switch, but it sort of comes with its pros and cons. It's without a doubt a way better way to experience the game if you're a casual player just getting to the end, but it also kind of removes some key aspects that make the original on GBA a lot more rewarding to master. The primary culprit is that score is entirely removed, and getting gold medals in this game on each level is only determined by getting every single collectible in the stage, meaning you no longer have the incentive to master every aspect of every level, especially beating it quickly. Though thankfully there is a time attack mode to unlock for beating the game, and the times are actually pretty strict, so that does kind of make up for it. But due to the vastly improved controls and removal of fall damage altogether, levels are easier than ever to exploit, and some challenges can just kind of be skipped over entirely fairly easily with the way Mario controls now. This remake is full of blessings and curses, because the trade-off is that the brand new levels that are mixed into the game are really well designed and almost makes me wish we got a whole new Mario vs. Donkey Kong game instead. But I guess this was a lower budget project. I like this remake, but I also can't say it definitely beats the original. There's kinda reasons to play both. Now, Penny's Big Breakaway is a good one for sure. I'll get this right out of the way. The biggest problem I have with this game is that it was probably rushed to meet a Shadow Drop release date, since the game was absolutely bugged to the core at launch. Glitches left and right with this one. It was really sad to see. However, beneath this lack of polish at launch is a really brilliant 3D platformer. This was made by the team that came together to make Sonic Mania, and now they've formed Evening Star to go the indie route and make this game alongside pitching into other projects like Sonic Superstars where needed. It definitely delivers on spectacular level design and an amazing flow state that will give speedrunners the most fun time. However, I must admit, as much as I like this game, I did kinda drop it pretty quickly after I beat it. It's a great game, but I do think some worlds overstay their welcome with up to 4 stages and sometimes even a boss in a world. And the bosses definitely don't hit for me. But still, if you want a game to exploit the physics of down to the bone, this game is a must-buy for sure. And I'm pretty sure all of the necessary patches have come out for the game, so your experience should be a lot smoother than mine was. Now, March was simultaneously one of the best months for me, while also being one of the worst. To shamefully plug the bright side, I published my first ever retrospective on the channel, being the Terraria video, and I am still to this day astounded by the reception of it. I put a lot of effort into the video, and to see such positive reception from it it absolutely made my year. I was overwhelmed with so much love from everyone that watched the video. Seriously, thank you to everyone who watched the Terraria video. I hadn't got that much of an explosive response to a video in a very long time. Seriously, thank you all so much again. The downside of this month is that a few days after I launched that video, I got hit with COVID. Thought I could get away with pulling a matrix on that virus, but I just couldn't dodge it this time. So after around March 20th, the rest of the month was me isolating myself from the world to recover from COVID. The only upside is that I get to binge watch a ton of stuff I needed to catch up on. Dune Part 1 is a very strange movie that I don't really have much to say about due to the film pretty much being a whole load of build-up. There's some cool scenery with the freaky sandworms, and the music is very deserty, but it's mainly just build up until a knife fight happens and then it cuts to the credits. It's pretty jarring in all honesty. Dune Part 2, however, I saw in theaters, and it was definitely a lot more substantial with several different things happening. There were some really cool scenes in this one, and it was generally more satisfying as a movie. That being said, Part 3 needs to be great for the first 2 parts to really be worth watching as films, because if it doesn't stick that landing, they're not gonna be that great as movies overall. There was one game I played this month, and it was a gosh darn Pizza Tower update. And an update it was. I really enjoyed Pizza Tower last year. It was one of my favorites, and playing through the game again as a pretty different playing character was pretty interesting. I think I enjoy playing as Peppino more, but playing as the Noise in this update is undeniably really cool with the way you can bounce all over the walls and do a deadly spin on the ground and stuff. It's pretty great. Thought you could escape discussion on Attack on Titan? Well, too bad, I live under a rock. For the past good while, I've slowly but surely been making my way through Attack on Titan. I'm actually not really super into anime, but everyone kinda begged me to watch this one. I slowly made my way through it over the years, but when I got COVID, I didn't really have much of an excuse, so I sat down and watched the rest of the series. Attack on Titan is a series that I have massive respect for. It is one of the most effective apocalypse settings I've seen in a hot minute, and the scenery on display is absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed the first 2 seasons of this show. I liked Season 3, but I wasn't head over heels for it. But my hot take comes in with the final season. I think that the story they told is very good when I'm looking at it on an objective level. The twist they do for the final season when it comes to the main character is exceptionally well done and was well built up throughout the entire series through every subtle hint that are just large enough to make the massive twist work. However, despite it being a really cool twist that is really well done, it's a twist I don't really care for. I really respect the art on display here, but it just rubs me the wrong way. I can't get into it without getting into spoilers, and even though by now I bet a ton of people have already seen the entire series, but still, for those who haven't, I'm not gonna spoil it. But it just makes me look back on some of my absolute favorite moments from this series in earlier seasons, and it has my mind completely changed on them knowing what happens in this last season. I don't know, it just feels off and weird, and it just completely changes my enjoyment of it. I sadly can't get into it, but it just didn't really mesh with me, even if it is a really well executed twist. I will give the show all my props for that. I still think it is a great anime to watch. Recovering from COVID into April was a bit of a task, but the deed was done pretty early into the month, thankfully. Luckily, this recovering allowed me to secretly watch a bunch of other stuff. Invincible is a pretty awesome show. No, I'm not doing the f***ing title sequence gag. I'm not getting copyright claim for that. I'm not the kind of person that is into superhero shows in the slightest. I think a lot of them are very cliché. But the way Invincible tackles how realistically brutal a world full of superpowered people really would be is such a breath of fresh air. I don't really want to get into spoilers for this series, as right now we're 2 seasons into the animated series being a thing, but the show really tackles how mentally damaging it can be as a superhero, alongside how not everyone is able to be completely safe and sound when destructive happenings in the world cause the deaths of hundreds upon thousands of civilians. It is a brutal show, and that's why I love it, and Season 2 has some really great moments, especially towards the final fight of the season. I am stoked for Season 3, and even though I've already watched all of Season 3 as of recording this, just pretend that it hasn't come out yet. I'll talk about it next year. Invincible is easily my favorite piece of superhero media. I love this show. Now here's an interesting one. Death Parade is a neat little 12-episode anime I decided to watch when I was sick. It is a cool concept of having spirits play a twisted game in the afterlife while slowly having their memories brought back to them as the game goes along, and inevitably deciding what spirit goes to heaven and which one goes to hell. It isn't the most mind-blowing show of all time, there's not a bunch of crazy action shots or anything, but I did really like the concept, and I liked that it was a short yet complete story that doesn't need multiple seasons in order to be told. The Knuckles Show. Holy crap, people freaking hate the Knuckles Show. Back when it was coming out, at least, people were calling it one of the worst pieces of Sonic media of all time, and calling it one of the worst shows they've ever seen. There's barely any Knuckles in it, and it's trash and garbage. And I'm not going to talk down to anyone that genuinely had a miserable time watching this. I mean, I'm not them. But when I watched it on my own, without knowing what the public reception was at all, did we watch the same show? I did not think the Knuckles Show was atrocious in the slightest. I can see the possibility of it being disappointing due to Knuckles not being the main character or not getting enough Knuckles screen time in the show, but I just really wasn't even keeping track of the amount of Knuckles in the show. I actually thought they made Wade a far more interesting and funny character in this series than the movies, and Knuckles was in for an amount of time that didn't leave me wanting to skip ahead to when the next Knuckles part of the episode was. I do not say this often because people are entitled to their own opinion, but I genuinely feel like people overreacted to how bad this show was. Like, I get it if it wasn't your thing, or if it's your least favorite Sonic show or something, but this is far from the worst thing I've seen all year. And if it's the worst thing you've ever seen in your entire life, forgive me if I sound a bit rude, but I don't think you've watched a whole lot of bad shows or movies before, if that's the case. I thought Knuckles was probably, at most, okay. I enjoyed the comedy, and I enjoyed the action scenes. However, I will say, Wade's sister is one of the most annoying characters I've seen in a show. No disrespect to the actress. And the ending is just flat out anticlimactic. Still, I'd recommend watching it for yourself and forming your own opinion if all you've seen online is just pure hate and spite towards it. You may find something you may actually like, or you may hate it like most of the people do, and well, that's okay, I guess. May was the month that the Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remake dropped, more on that later. I published the Diamond to Dirt documentary on the channel about video game polish. This was an interesting little project I did since I've never really done a documentary before. but I was taking a film documentary class during this time period, and I thought it'd be interesting to make a video worth publishing to the channel out of it. I don't know if I'll make another documentary like this again, but I had fun spreading a message about the state of the game industry in this video, and getting some folks like my friends at college and my friend that works over at Kluge Interactive on Synth Riders for an interview was really cool. Now here's an interesting one. Cobweb is a movie that came out in 2023 that I decided to watch on a whim with some VR chat friends. It was recent enough for me to say that it is a batshit insane strange movie that I didn't really get scared of at all, especially with the reveal of the goofy-ass looking villain, but I did like a number of aspects of it. I didn't completely hate it. Now, here's a bit of a random one. Pompo the Cinephile, on the other hand, was a really cool film. I really loved how they portrayed so many different aspects of directing a film and working with a team on so many different aspects and getting the higher-ups to agree and make changes that completely alter the entire piece of the film they're making in this movie. It's just charming. However, I do have a friend who likes it even more than I do, and he's about to come crashing in and gush about it right now.
I watched Pompo the Cinephile back in 2022, and I've watched it a total of 5 times between then and now. I stumbled upon this movie by pure chance at my Walmart in the new release section. It was shoved to the side and lowered down on the rack of movies, but the cover art caught my eye. Since this was the point of my college life, I had switched my major to communication media. I watched it and instantly fell in love with the animation and story, following a character, Gene, on his first time directing a new movie. All the characters are memorable and have their own backstories that tie into their actions throughout the movie. Gene's character interactions with Pompo and all the other characters is great to see. My favorite way the movie was told was when we're introduced to this girl named Natalie and we see her backstory. We've seen her a couple times in the beginning, but never formally introduced to her. When she walks through the door of Pompo's office and is given the main role in Pompo's new movie, the movie rewinds like a VHS tape and shows the audience her whole backstory of wanting to become an actor. When it's finished, we fast forward back to the moment in Pompo's office where we originally left off as Gene is given the role of director. The movie is not just about making a film, but the struggles a film can run into. There are several moments during the shoot Gene must come up with on-the-fly solutions for filming to stay on track. Then, during post-production, the movie is delayed due to Gene's want for an extra scene to finish the movie. The way that they show Gene asking Pompo for additional shooting and comparing that to the movie that's being made within the movie was so well executed. Due to this delay, investors pull funding for the movie and bad publicity surrounds the release delay. I don't want to spoil too much of the movie because I love how it's resolved in a unique but realistic manner. My favorite specific part of the movie is when Alan is formally introduced to the audience through being in Gene's high school class. He works at a highly renowned bank and Gene comments on how big that is, but Alan just replies with, "No, it sucks, I hate it." I still laugh out loud at that scene every time I watch it. Pompo the Cinephile is a movie I could recommend to anyone, not just people who know about the film industry. It tells the story of an inspiring artist through Gene, who gets his big break, and the struggles he faces along the way. All focused on the movie-making process. Creative minds exist in everyone, and there is nothing stopping you from finding creative solutions in whatever field you find yourself working in the future. Oh, and there's this whole detail that Pompo only likes movies to be 90 minutes long. Pompo the Cinephile is a 90-minute movie. Awesome attention to detail.
Okay, now here we go, the biggin'. Now then, to put into perspective, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door is my personal favorite turn-based RPG. I'm not typically a huge fan of the genre, but this singular game completely wins me over due to how every single chapter feels like their own self-contained narrative that all leads up to the finale. That, and the combat is simple yet filled with a surprising amount of depth without feeling overwhelming. It is a perfect entry-level RPG series in my eyes, both Thousand Year Door and the first game on the N64. Nintendo, however, has barely acknowledged this game over the years. They refuse to go back to the formula of this game in modern titles, and they just inch further and further away from this glorious gem and keep it behind them like they have no idea what it even is. So you better believe me when I say I popped the off when Nintendo finally pushed the damn remake Thousand Year Door button and announced it at the end of that September 2023 Nintendo Direct. I legitimately dreamed of that exact scenario unfolding the way that they did it in the trailer. So, how's the remake itself? Well, gosh darn it, it isn't perfect, but I'll take what I can get. They put a ton of effort into this remake, adding new assets and updating textures like it's almost a brand new game. I almost prefer this version over the original, but there are two things holding it back for me. One is the 30 frames per second frame rate that is definitely noticeable. I'm tired of pretending it isn't when the original game's frame rate is a smooth 60 frames per second. But what sort of kills it for me is the slower text speed. It's not agonizingly slow like in the Origami King, but it's slow enough for it to make replays pretty unpleasant. But other than that, it's Thousand Year Door. I do love most of the remixes, though some new tracks that appear in the game do kind of ruin certain moments of the game for me, but I won't get into specifics since I think you should play this for yourself. Just know that even turning on the original game's soundtrack via the Nostalgic Tunes badge doesn't fix the issue. They still play the new tracks in their respective scenes. Still, this is definitely the version I would recommend to those who have never played the Thousand Year Door before. It doesn't run at 60 FPS, but the other quality of life features make up for it and definitely make it the best casual experience of the game. But I would definitely stick to the GameCube version for speedruns and ROM hacks. It's June and games are starting to go hog wild from here. Aside from August, there's pretty much a new release every month for the rest of the year, some of which I didn't get to at the right time. On the backlog, I finished Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle. This is a solid game, and I bought the sequel, which is definitely better, but I honestly don't think this series is for me. It has stellar animation, but the environments don't really click with me, and I just don't really think I'm into tactical RPGs. This is a fun and good game, don't get me wrong, but it just isn't my thing. Content warning, on the other hand, is something more in my alley. If you've played Lethal Company before, it's in the same lane as that, where 4 goofball workers go into a deep dark alien planet and work on stuff while scary monsters roam about. In this game, you're filming a bunch of scary monsters for content to grow your channel. It's a simple concept, but it leads to a lot of funny shenanigans that get recorded and saved. This game practically generates free compilation videos for small content creators. I wouldn't really call this a Lethal Company clone since you play it completely differently from that game, but it has the same skeleton as it, and I think it's a nice, goofy little fun horror game. Here's some clips of some of the madness I've gone into in this game.
Okay. Millie, jump down there.
Whee! Whee! Alex!
Weehaw.
Hey, where's the fire guy? I need to see.
No fire! Can I taste you?
Oh, he's following you. Okay.
Run! Run!
It's Nail Guy! It's Nail Guy! What's up? Goodbye. Goodbye.
Oh, you have another guys! Get the fuse at least! Get the fuse!
I'm getting the
Oh,
view!
no!
No, we don't have a shot stick!
I know!
Drop the camera!
No!
I don't have a shot stick!
He's reeling me in! Millie! He's reeling me in!
It's running! It's running!
Run! No, it's gonna be next.
way.
This is your chance to run! Get out of here, Cutter! Get it!
Shit. Shit.
Ow! God!
Ah! Oh no!
Not the hole.
Where is he? Where is he? Where's Ryder?
Run. I think he fell down the hole. We need to go.
Yeah.
No! No! Ow! Ow! Ow!
Ow! Ow! Ow!
Wait,
guys,
where
a
is the camera?
defibrillator.
Defibrillator. Wait, what? And now he's dead again. Oh,
I'd like to talk to you about your. Oh, that's sticky! You got some sticky goop, mister! You got some sticky ass stuff! Ow! Guys, I need help. Ugh. That did not feel good. Inside, close the door, close the door.
Penis!
Ooh boy, how about that Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble though? This is a big and stay strapped in. This is a gosh darn achievement. The series has been very hit or miss for a while now, with the originals on the arcade and GameCube always being the clear shining beacon that next to none of the other games follow the design philosophy of for some reason. The remake of those older games, Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, was a large step in the right direction, but the physics of that game didn't leave that same oomph that the GameCube titles had. It was more like a nice casual entry into what Monkey Ball was. Banana Rumble, though? This game has oomph. A very different oomph, but it is a good oomph. The level design matches the game's physics in such a good way, and the spin dash is a genius new move for the game. It allows for such incredible speedrun potential. This is actually the Monkey Ball game that I was able to actually get my friends into the series fully with. I don't know if them buying the game really boosted the sales of this game all that much, but darn it, it's worth something. Really, the only things I don't like about this game are how the challenge mode doesn't exist like in the GameCube games, but I suppose it doesn't really need to. That and the battle modes they aren't fun. Some of them are pretty interesting, but they took a risk in that department, and it just leaves a half of the package that just doesn't really work for me. I think I'd tolerate it more if the Switch could handle the game running better, but alas, they have yet to make a PC port of this game. It is a shame because the online is the whole reason they made this a Switch exclusive to flesh out the online mode and make it stable. But thankfully, at least you can play the whole adventure mode in online co-op, and that works really well. So, the online wasn't a complete waste of funding or anything. Still though, despite the lackluster battle mode, this is the proper return to Monkey Ball all of us were hoping for. I don't think the sales of this game were all too great, which really is a massive shame, but hopefully they take the positive feedback of the adventure mode and apply that to another new game on the Switch too. Maybe we could get a Monkey Ball level editor? I think that's the next best step for this series, if there is one. If the poor sales of this never lead to another Monkey Ball game, then at least we can say the series ended on a really good note. Sorry for rambling a lot of this one. This is probably the top 3 game of the year for me. I absolutely love this one. July. I'm going straight into it. This game came out in June, but I don't care. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is a completely fine remaster of the 3DS game. It's Luigi's Mansion 2, but in HD, and that's probably the best you can possibly say about this one. The absolute worst thing about this remaster is that it's $60, which is a crime considering Miitopia, which is an absurdly long RPG with up to like 90 hours of gameplay, has so much more content than this game, and it was only priced 10 more than its original version. The best things I could probably say about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD are that it brings back the online mode in an official capacity, and that it controls a bit better. Oh well, I guess I like Luigi's Mansion 2, so I'm not upset or anything, but it's just a very unimpressive release for such an expensive price. In terms of movies, though, I decided to venture into the dangerous realm of Disney sequels. However, Inside Out 2 actually impressed me. Now, out of all the new movies I saw this year, this one is probably the weakest one, aside from maybe how I feel about Dune Part 2, but for a modern-day Disney sequel, it gets right what it needs to get right. It has some surprisingly effective scenes. I like how they explore a lot more of the characters that didn't get a lot of attention in the first movie, and the new marketable emotions didn't feel like a gimmick that pissed me off. I don't know, Inside Out 2 was a good one. Out of any Disney franchise that has sequel potential nowadays, Inside Out 2 definitely has the most potential. I'm actually kind of interested to see how they do in Inside Out 3. It's certainly a better idea than Toy Story 5. Now, I actually really like the Deadpool movies. They aren't genius films or anything with absolutely masterful writing, but they're fun action comedies that tell decently effective stories. Deadpool 3, or rather Deadpool and Wolverine, kinda gives this approach a backseat to purely be an action comedy. And as such, I don't really think it's as good as the first two Deadpool movies, but it is still a good watch. There are a number of jokes that don't really land for me, but there are just as many that do land for me, and it's great fun when that happens. I really hate passing off films as good just because they're decent turn your brain off films, but Deadpool and Wolverine most definitely has very good action scenes and character moments, but it really lacks a good narrative. It's one of those movies that's just kinda supposed to give the theater a massive kick, and that's what it did. The intro to this film is absolutely fire, by the way. Whoever choreographed that deserves a raise. It was actually really good. So, interestingly enough, in August, I actually did release a video. I made a Stardew Valley retrospective, since I had a lot to say about the game. It was a video that took me a while to make, but I am satisfied with the message I want to tell with it. Though I admittingly did take down the original version of the video I released in August a few months ago because I wasn't really satisfied with the narration job I did. I wanted to go for a more relaxed and deep tone with my voice and make it almost ASMR-like, but as a result that just kinda made for a video that didn't really sound like me. And the way I talked just made the video seem boring and slow. So I honestly wasn't very proud of it, so I took it down and re-edited it to match a better narration that I'm far more satisfied with. It was an interesting learning experience, and I had fun getting others to help me with skits and multiplayer in this video, so overall it was a fun project, and I just really love Stardew Valley in general, so yeah. But back to going through the stuff I actually played. August was kind of a backlog month, so let's just speedrun this. I got a new 3DS recently, and I hacked it into oblivion. I have no shame in admitting that. So I checked out games that I never played that are no longer available. You can't get me. Mario Party Star Rush is one of them, and man, it is a shame that this is the best Mario Party on the 3DS, because the most this game gets out of me is a nose exhale. Mario Party the Top 100 is somehow even worse, but it at least has a solid single-player mode that is almost akin to the very first Mario Party single-player, but with less hand pain. Luigi's Mansion on 3DS is sort of the Super Mario 64 DS treatment for Luigi's Mansion, and in that regard, I really like it as a remake, but it would have been way cooler if it came out around the beginning of the 3DS's life. And Little Nightmares is a stunning little indie horror game that is short but makes the most of its runtime. I really like the sudden shift the main character you play as decides to have towards the end of the game, and it feels like it's just uncanny enough to make me feel uneasy. I haven't played the sequels, but I am open to trying them out in the future. Get the gosh darn party poppers out, it's my birthday month, and what do I get for my birthday? Astrobot! This game is absolutely incredible. Gonna cut right to the chase and say that this is my game of the year. Aside from Demon's Souls, this is the one game that actually made me definitively glad that I decided to buy a PS5. It is an absolute marvel of entertainment. It has absolutely incredible level design with outrageously fun gimmicks and stellar visuals. I love how unapologetically snappy this game is with its style and doesn't slow anything down to flow with any kind of sense of realism. This is one of the most charming video games I have ever played, and it is a top-tier 3D platformer in my eyes. It belongs on the same shelf as Super Mario Galaxy, and when that is the shelf I'm putting you on, that is some high f***ing praise. Sony, whatever you do, do not give Team Asobi the boot anytime soon. They absolutely cooked with this game, and they loved making you money with this game every step of the way. Thank you, Astrobot. You made the PS5 worth a fucking penny. Oh, and in preparation for Sonic X Shadow Generations, I actually decided to play Shadow the Hedgehog, which I never properly beat until this year. This game absolutely freaking blows, but I'm not gonna lie to you, there are a few things I genuinely like about this game. The music's good, though that's a given for Sonic, and I actually did get a kick out of some of the levels and gunplay. I used to think it's one of the worst Sonic games of all time, but now I'm pretty okay with saying, yeah, I guess this is better than Forces at least. October is the month I waited for all year. Some seriously awesome stuff came out this month. Transformers 1 did not come out in October, but it's a darn fine film. I never really cared much for Transformers at all, but this was a really engaging and entertaining animated film adaptation of the series, and I loved how strangely gruesome it could get for a PG film. More of this, please. Super Mario Party Jamboree, baby! This title is absolutely freaking stupid, but darn is this a good-ass Mario Party. Without a doubt, the best original Mario Party that Nintendo Cube has made. However, there are some things holding it back from being the best in the series. For one, the pacing is a tad too slow. I actually have a lot of patience when it comes to Mario Party, so I'm personally not too bothered by this, but Superstars definitely felt far snappier in comparison. There's a lot of little animations that delay basic actions, and it makes for a pretty slow-paced game. But what absolutely kills the pacing entirely is the ally mechanic. Similar to Super Mario Party, you can get an ally to join you on the board for extra benefits, though in Super it was mainly just for more dice rolls and extra dice blocks. In Jamboree, allies pretty much double every single thing you do, like landing on spaces twice, getting items twice, going to the shop twice, getting 2 stars on a star space, and even going to Bowser twice, which is freaking brutal. The drawback is that obtaining an ally takes so damn long. When anyone passes an ally, everyone has to participate in a showdown minigame to compete for the ally, and these minigames are pretty darn lengthy, taking anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, which isn't exactly a short time, and these can absolutely drag out even 10-turn games. But here's the thing, for how powerful allies are in this game, I wouldn't mind this insane length. But my problem is that stealing an ally from someone is super easy. They're only with you for a few turns, but if anyone passes you on the board, they will then take your ally, and that especially sucks when they get away with it, meaning all that time working your ass off in the minigame was all for nothing. Now, personally, I don't mind these issues with the game. It doesn't ruin it for me, but it does ruin it for a good chunk of my college friends, so I don't really get to play much Jamboree in person. It's only really an online friend activity for me at this point. I still think Jamboree is a great Mario Party, but it just needs 1 or 2 changes to be truly awesome. Sonic X Shadow Generations is my new favorite Sonic game in the entire series. Granted, that's mostly due to it already having my favorite Sonic game in there, but Shadow Generations is really good, and it's the best Sonic game to release from Sonic Team in a very long time. The Sonic Generations remaster is pretty much identical to the original game, which, after Sonic Colors Ultimate completely destroyed Sonic Colors, I'll take a generic port of a great game at this point. Shadow Generations surprised me so much with how much Sonic Team has collectively learned from Lost World Forces and Frontiers. I don't even know if it's the same team that worked on those games. But Shadow Gens does actually run on the same engine as Frontiers, so it does share a lot of the same DNA as it. Now, I actually already liked Sonic Frontiers. It's flawed for sure, but I have way more fun with it than I don't, and it laid such a cool groundwork for the series that didn't fully feel realized. And it does come with some of the coolest spectacle bosses in a video game I've seen over the last decade. Shadow Gens is not only a spiritual successor to Sonic Gens, but it feels like a great execution of what Frontiers was laying the groundwork for. It's a much shorter game than Frontiers and even Sonic Gens, but it has incredibly fun level design that feels wonderful to blast through. It also has that same sense of wonder when it comes to replaying the levels over and over and finding new routes and shortcuts to take. I really hope the next major Sonic game follows in this game's footsteps. Have longer and more in-depth levels like this with a world that is far more tuned to adapt with a Sonic character. I think one of the coolest things about this game, though, is that we actually have a Shadow the Hedgehog game that is genuinely great. The character really did deserve his own title that is as respected as the rest of the Sonic franchise, and even though it is a side game, this gives us that in spades. This is my number 2 game of the year. Please keep this up, Sonic Team. Good games lead to good sales, I promise. There's one new game that came out this month that piqued my interest, but we'll get to that when we get to that. This month, I was hard at work on my next major video project that hadn't released until January, but it took up the majority of my month. But we aren't at that video yet, we'll get there. Splatoon 3 Side Order was a game I needed to play for that video. I actually didn't really plan on getting this before, since I sort of fell out of Splatoon a while ago. But I did need to get this for the video I was making, and it was certainly more interesting than I was expecting. I don't really have much to say, as I talked about this in far more depth in the video itself, but Side Order is a pretty genius addition to the Splatoon single-player roster. But I kinda think it's a lackluster roguelike. It doesn't really have enough variety to feel like a roguelike that's worth the money, but it is a fun Splatoon experience, and that's what I'll say about that. Mario and Luigi Brothership. This one's complex. I am very glad that Mario and Luigi came back, but we definitely deserved a way better entry than this. I am of the hot take that I like it more than Partners in Time, Dream Team, and Paper Jam, but it all feels so held back by how slow the beginning is and how slow it can be getting around the ocean. I will say that this game gets astronomically good in the latter half of the adventure, leading to one of the wildest finales I've ever seen in a Mario game, but it shouldn't take that long to hook me. I think Brothership is a good game, but it really should have been better. I feel like it's more of a mid-tier Mario RPG. Sadly, I think this is probably the last we'll see of Mario & Luigi due to how low the sales of this one were. Sorry, Mario & Luigi, it was a good attempt. Smiling Friends. I'm not talking about this. The last month was a bit of a cleanup of games I hadn't heard of in 2024, or games I didn't really get to try out in the year. Liar's Bar is a viciously suspenseful card game. It's a spin on Russian roulette, where you try to guess if your opponents are putting the assigned card onto the field or not, and if you catch them, they have to take a revolver shot with a chance of dying. But if you failed to catch them for lying and they were actually telling the truth, you have to take a chance of death yourself. It is shockingly intense, and it's fun every time I play it. They have another game in there called Liar's Dice, and they actually have poker planned for this game, but the basic card game is worth the price alone. It's really intense, and I really like it. I got sick in November at one point, so I decided to play Cult of the Lamb. Now, I'm not a roguelike or roguelite person, however you say it, but something about Cult of the Lamb simply hooked me. It has a very charming art style, has a very addicting progression system with the cult you have to grow and maintain, and the roguelite part is something I am easily able to get into due to its simplicity or how it challenges you in short sessions rather than having an endurance test across a whole game's worth of content. They added a co-op mode to this game pretty recently, and it's such a well-executed co-op mode that I played the entire game again with my friend who has a lot of hours put into the game already. Said friend is also the one who actually got me the game into the first place. Thank you, friend, I appreciate it. I didn't get into Buckshot Roulette when it was a big deal in the year, but I am very much into it. I like how it's basically Russian roulette, but with a shotgun. I actually haven't tried the new multiplayer mode of this game, but one of my favorite things about this game is how it has the aesthetic of an old Windows XP computer game. I'm weirdly nostalgic for those older Windows computer games. I sound like an old man describing it like that, but it's true, darn it. I did like those old Windows XP computer games. Keanu Reeves came to Sonic X Shadow Generations, and it provided us with the least good level in the entire game, but it is still pretty okay. The team seemed to have a lot of fun making the environments and cinematics for this DLC, so I gotta give some praise for that. I think what kind of bugs me the most about this DLC, weirdly enough, is the voice acting. Keanu did great in the movie, which we'll talk about in a second, but man, I just don't think acting in games is his thing. It sounds like they got him into a booth during an after party, told him to say a few lines real quick, and called it a day. It just lacks energy. But if you wanted to play as Movie Shadow, this DLC is good for that. That's about it. Speaking of Sonic 3, man, what an exciting movie to witness. No, it is not a masterpiece that is going to blow your socks off, but it is, in my opinion, the most entertaining video game movie I've seen. It feels respectful enough to the games while still having its own original story to tell that was engaging to follow. It felt like a movie. It made me feel things. Yes, I'm winking at you with thoughts of the Super Mario Bros. Movie right now. I'm sorry. But as a Sonic fan, this is realistically everything I could have wanted from a live-action Sonic film. I honestly do not see Sonic 4 topping this when that comes out in 2027. Sonic 3 is a real treat, and I'm glad I made it through 2024 to see it. 2024 was a year of highs and lows for me, but it was another year of life. And life goes on into 2025. Before I do close, I do want to say that I released my Splatoon single-player retrospective in January, and it's definitely my biggest project to date. I had a really good time making it, and I'm pretty darn proud of what I made. I would recommend watching it if you like Splatoon. Yes, I'm shameless plugging, shut up. 2025 has a lot on its plate. The Nintendo Switch 2 is dropping, and there's a number of games on the back of our minds that we know we'll get to play this year, like Metroid Prime 4. But whether it goes swimmingly or not, I hope you all have a wonderful 2025, and I'll see you later. Bye!